Hi, everyone. This is attorney Lillian Chukura with Lily Legal, where we help our clients get status for themselves and for their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So, today I will be talking to you about the top 3 things you can do to make sure that you win your removal of condition case. Okay, that's what we're going to be going into today. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. If you would like to schedule a time to speak with me privately, you can do that. All my contact information is in the description to this video. Now, this came this topic came up for me because I have so many removal of condition cases pending. And actually, the other day, I had a client go for their removal of condition interview, and it went amazing. They were so excited. That the interview was quick. The officer did not, spend too much time dissecting every single thing in their marriage, and they were just ecstatic. So I thought about what are the top 3 things you can actually do to make sure that you have the same or similar experience. Again, every single case is different, but these are the things you can do to make sure that in your case that you're not opening yourself up for a denial or for an officer to take even more time on your case. You do not want that. You want them to come in, look at your case, ask you some questions, and approve you. Okay, so what is a removal of condition? This is basically where you have a green card through your spouse, and it is a 2-year green card. Okay. Remember, if you have a 2-year green card, it's a conditional residency, and you have to remove that condition within 2 years of having that card. So before the card expires, you have to file to remove the condition. So if you do all of that, you file your application, you have your interview. Some cases do not get interviewed, but most do. You have your interview, and then the next thing after your interview is for the officer to either approve it or to ask for more information before they feel comfortable approving your case. So we want to go through these step by step from beginning to the actual interview on things you can do to make your case strong from the jump, and to prepare you for your interview, because those are the things that make or break your case. Okay, so when you're starting, you are starting from the day you got your 2-year green card. Okay, I'm not talking about, oh, it's a month to the 2 years expiring, let me go ahead and file this application. No, I want you to start thinking about removing your condition right when you get your green card. That's what you need to start thinking about. So, if you've watched my video on documentation to prove good faith marriage, you know that I have a bunch that you can basically pick and select what works for you in your marriage to help show that your marriage is real, right? When it comes to removing conditions, you want to start when you get your green card, because USCIS wants to see that from the time you got your green card to your interview, or to when you filed to remove your condition, that you and your spouse are continuing to build a life together. Okay? That's what they want to see. Is your marriage real? That's still the question 2 years later. Okay? So get your green card. Great. It's a 2-year one. When you go to remove your condition, the question is still the same. Is your marriage real? And the best way for you to show that is to actually commingle funds, basically show them the documentation, and continue having the same documentations that you did when you started the process. So if you had um, a green card, um, if you had your green card application approved and you had bank statements, tax returns, um, utilities, all those things, when you go to file your removal of condition, just know it is expected that you will still be filing your taxes jointly, that you will still have bank statements, right? Because you have a joint account, it's expected that you will continue to have a joint account. And something I do for my clients is we print out everything, right? From the time you got your green card to when we are applying for the removal, we want those statements to show that this is a continuous thing. It's not just an account that you opened just to get your 2 year green card and now that you have it, it's done. No, 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 no. We want to show that from the day you got your green card to now, that you are still using that account the same way you told USCIS or the embassy that you are using this account. So you really, 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 really want to make sure that you are using your account. Okay. If you have joint assets, you want to maintain those joint assets. If you had let's say health insurance, car insurance together, you want to show that you still have it or that you've either changed companies, but it's still a joint thing that you have together. Okay. So that's from the beginning, you want to present those documentation showing that your marriage is still real, that you still have those documentations, and that you have it for, I would say, the 2 year span that they're looking at, okay? Not just 1 month of statements right before you file, but the further back to when you got your green card that you can go, the better. Because it shows them this is from day one. We told you we have this account. We told you we have these joint assets. We told you we have these joint liabilities, and we still have them till today. So you really, really, really want to hone in on what type of documents did you send in the first place, and are you still in possession of those documentation that you can update those. If you send in things like text messages and phone calls, you can still include those on this stage. But if you're living together, your text messages in a day maybe like 2 or 3 max. So it's okay to include those, but you really, want to include actual commingling of your finances, actual joint assets, actual joint liabilities, showing that you have updated your job to let them know that your spouse is now that you are now married, and maybe you change your spouse to be your emergency contact person. You want to do all of those things. If you changed your name, you want to actually go through the process of going through Social Security and all of that to change your name officially. So that is the first tip I can give you, is make sure you are gathering your documents. You are thinking about what documents you need from the day you get your green card to the day you are filing, and not just when it's time to file, you're scrambling. Keep your records so that you're not scrambling last minute. Okay. So I'm just going to take a question in the comments about, this seems to be about VAWA. Okay. So this person is asking if they have their VAWA application, the I-360 approved, and then they get a notice from USCIS asking for medical exam report, and they send that in. How long does it take after that to get your green card approved? Honestly, that depends on the jurisdiction you're in. You can always check the processing time for your specific jurisdiction, and that will tell you how long a typical green card application takes. Um, how long a typical green card application with your filing status takes in your jurisdiction. So that will give you a good idea of how long it may take. So sometimes when they send that request, it may take a month or more, right? It can take up to a month or more for them to make a final decision on your case. But requesting the medical exam before scheduling an interview is a good sign that they will most likely not schedule an interview unless something comes up in the meantime that makes them feel like they have to schedule an interview. But it is a good sign if they are requesting the medical exam report and not just scheduling you for an interview. So I will just say, be patient with them, and just look at that processing time just so you have a good idea of how long it typically takes in your jurisdiction, and that will also give you some peace of mind. Let's say it's, if it takes a year and you are on month 9, it will give you some peace of mind that, okay, this is not out of the ordinary for it to take longer than 9 months, right? So it's really a good idea that if you are in this position, that you just go ahead, look at that processing time, because it will give you some peace of mind. Or if it's past the processing time and you're able to do a service request, that may be the perfect time to do that. So you really want to look at that processing time to know if you should do a service request, or if you are still within the processing time and just have to wait some more. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. I will be looking at those as I'm going along and responding to you. Okay, so the next thing you can do, okay, the next thing you can do is to prepare for your interview. So, one thing is having documentation that you send in with your application. The interview, if you are scheduled for an interview, the interview will make or break your case. And I will explain. Okay. I will tell you a little story. So, I had a couple, they were now divorced, right? They filed jointly to remove the condition. By the time of the interview, they were already divorced. But the US citizen spouse was still willing to go to the interview. But USCIS wanted to make sure, hey, was this marriage real? Right? It didn't matter, you know, that you two are now divorced. Was it real? How did you meet? USCIS actually took the time, the officer took the time, interviewed the individuals separately, and just compared their answers, make sure that they were ready, that they were actually in a relationship and not just here to make USCIS think that they had a marriage, even though it ended in divorce. So when they came to me, they had an interview. They were scared. They weren't sure what to expect, and we went through a mock interview. Okay, we prepare them for the interview, because when you are divorced and you are still in a relationship like they were, and trying to figure out the best ways to go about removing the condition, especially if you have already filed to remove the condition, it can be very tricky, right? It can be very daunting to go in there and be like, yes, my marriage was real, but we're now divorced. But we're still, friendly with each other. My spouse is here, ready to testify to our marriage and all of that. So sometimes it can be daunting, but the thing that makes all the difference in the world is preparation. Okay. If you do not prepare for your interview, I am sorry. Okay. It is not going to turn out well for you. Okay. You need to, have your documentations and all of that, but also be prepared to answer questions about you and your spouse. It is going to be very similar to to your marriage interview that you had when you got the 2-year green card. Okay. Just be prepared to answer more questions about your relationship over the past 2 years. By the time you have your interview, it's going to probably be like 3 or 4 years. But just know that's what they're expecting. They're expecting you to be able to show them that you have built a life together, that you continue to build a life together. Okay, so your interview is very key if you're filing together, or even if you're filing without your spouse. So let's say you got your 2 year green card, but then there was some domestic violence and you left the relationship and you're not divorced yet. You can still file to remove your condition. Even if you get divorced, you can still file to remove the condition. The only thing is, the officers will ask you questions about that, right? And you just have to prepare for that type of questioning during your interview and be prepared to still answer questions about your relationship, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're divorced. The main thing the officers are looking at is whether your marriage was real, whether you entered your marriage in good faith and wanted to build a life together. Even if it doesn't work out, right? Even if it doesn't work out and you got a divorce or you're separated due to abuse, you can still go ahead and get your 10-year green card. But you have to be prepared for that. Okay. So remember, first thing, have your documentation of your relationship in order. The second thing, prepare for your interview. Okay. I have a whole video on interview preparation. Go ahead, watch that. Help yourself. Okay. Prepare for that. My clients don't have to worry about that because I do help them prepare for the interviews. So, but if you are not working with a lawyer, you should be doing everything you can to prepare for your interview and be ready to answer questions about your marriage, yourself, and your current condition. As far as if you're still married, if you're no longer married, um, all of that. You should be prepared to answer those questions. Now, the third thing that I want to tell you is make sure make sure you file within the 2 years, right? If your 2 year green card expires, let's say March 30th, 2022, don't go filing on March 31st, on April 1st, 2022. Your application has to be in before the deadline. Your application has to be in before the deadline. So before your card expires, USCIS should have received your application, especially if you're filing jointly with your spouse. Okay. If you're filing jointly with your spouse, the rules say USCIS has to receive your application to remove the condition before your 2 years expires. So make sure you are following through and actually keeping an eye on when your card expires. Even if you have to put a note for yourself, a calendar event on your phone to remind you of when it expires, so that you get a notification maybe 2 months prior, a month prior, so that you can get that application out before the due date. You really want to pay attention to the actual date that you have to have your application in by. Now, if you're filing based on, let's say, abuse or divorce, the deadline is not as strict, but it's usually a good idea to still file it within that 2 years, because once you file, you'll get an extension. Right now, those extensions are for up to 2 years. So you really want to make sure that as you're um, filing, that you're getting that extension. So if you wait 6 months, even if it's a waiver application where there was a divorce, if you wait 6 months, that's 6 months that you don't have proof of your status, right? That's a year that you don't have proof of your status, and eventually, depending on when your on when your job does their annual review to make sure that everyone is still eligible to work, or when your driver's license expires, you do need proof of your status to renew your license, for your job to basically verify your status. So that's another reason to file on time, because it does have other effects other than just delaying your um, removal of condition case. It can have other effects as far as having proof of your status. So anything that requires you to have proof of status, if you miss the deadline and the longer you wait to file, the longer it is that you're going to not have proof of your status. So just keep that in mind. When you do file, your receipt notice will be proof of your status, and it does automatically extend your status up to 2 years. And you want to hold on to that. You can travel with that. That is proof that you are a resident of the United States. So you do not want to lose that. Okay. You want to keep that. So you really want to make sure that, one, you have all your documentations, two, you prepare for the interview, and three, that you filed your application within the time frame that's given to you, which is before your 2 years expires. However, it is not entirely fatal if you file outside of that 2 years, but there are consequences outside of immigration that you may suffer, like not being able to renew your license, or similar things that require proof of your status. So just pay attention to the date that your 2 years expires, because that can make a huge difference on what you can actually do. Um, as far as proof of status. Okay. And just know, while your application is pending, you can travel with that notice showing that your status has been extended. So it's a lot of benefits to filing within the 2 years, or as soon as you're able to. Okay. So that is what I have for you today on the top 3 things you can do to win your removal of condition case. Now, some bonus things that I'm just going to throw in there because I've seen this. Okay. I've seen this happen. One, you're going to be nervous, like, especially the non US citizen spouse. You're going to be nervous. It's fine. They're used to that. But just know the questions are basic questions. I remember I was doing um, a mock interview with one of my clients, and he basically said, these are questions that you should know if you are married to somebody and you live in the same household with them. So that's really what the questions are going to focus on, right? It's questions you should know if you live with somebody and you've been married to them and build another life with them. So it's not going to be a lot of gotcha questions, but just know the other thing to keep in mind, if you have had any criminal history, it could lead to other issues. Okay. Just quickly, even if you have a restraining order, I had a case where the officer actually used the fact that there was a restraining order between the spouses as proof that the marriage was real. Okay, so that does not automatically mean that your case will not be approved, but you should be talking to an immigration lawyer if you have any criminal history, to just make sure that it will not affect your case or end up with you in deportation proceedings. So it's really important that you pay attention to that. And if you can stay away from being arrested, that would be the best option for you, because it can really derail your immigration case. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, as always, you can reach out to me. All my contact information is in the description to this video. You can put your questions in the comments as well, and I am happy to respond to those. And as always, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. And remember, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you know someone who needs to hear this, go ahead and share the video with them. And if you are listening in a place where you can subscribe, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And as always, I am Lillian Chukura. I am the owner of Lily Legal, where we do immigration law and we do it really well. Bye for now.